I'm Kerry Shale.
And I'm Daniel Crespin.
And this is Bob Dylan.
Approximately.
Well, the book of Leviticus and Deuteronomy, the law of the jungle and the sea are your only teachers. In the smoke of the twilight, on a milk-white steed, Michelangelo indeed could have carved out your features. Resting in the fields, far from the turbulent space, half asleep neath the stars, with a small dog licking your face.
So many questions.
How serene.
Yes. And why? My first question is, why does he say Michelangelo?
Yeah.
I mean, I looked it up.
Michelangelo.
And nobody says Michelangelo.
No.
His name is pronounced Michelangelo.
Michelangelo. It's because it's the Michael. It doesn't change the stresses in terms of syllables.
No.
So, yeah.
It's the least important question in Jokerman.
I mean, the first word I've written on my notes about this song is perplexity. I mean, I thought I'd have a million things to say about this really dense lyrical song. But I actually don't in many ways. And I've read up a little that Dylan doesn't particularly like the song himself. He's played it 157 times. The last time was in 2003, which is hardly anything compared to a lot of his... For what's a well-known song in his canon, for lack of a better word. But even when he does, he kind of changes verses around and changes lyrics completely. I don't get the feeling it's a song he particularly is proud of. I think it's, for me, looking into it, it's beautiful in some ways. It's really poetic and amazing, but actually as an overarching narrative, I don't really know what the fuck's going on.
Oh, God, there's no overarching narrative, is there?
I mean, it seems to me, from what I can get, it's about a man who needs to repent for his crimes against God. He's close to the truth, but he's kind of turning away from it in arrogance, which kind of is in keeping with the last 3 years of Dylan's career. I mean, I've always found it quite a nice little smirky, winky joke from Dylan that his first so-called secular album after 3 albums of Christian songs is called Infidels.
Yeah. Well, I don't think, of course, he never said that it was a secular album.
That's true.
I've got a bit of background on the album just to get it over with, unless you've got some.
No.
So it was released the 1st of November 1983. Ah, the 80s. And he hadn't released an album for over 2 years at that point. Apparently, he did a duet album with Clyde King, which was rejected and remains in the vaults.
Ooh.
Yeah, Columbia rejected it.
Surprised there's not a bootleg of that somewhere.
Yeah, I know. So he did the 3 Christian albums, and he managed finally to do what he couldn't do with Self-Portrait, is that he shook off tons of his fans, including me. And I, after I heard Slow Train Coming, which I've come back to and I now enjoy, but I didn't listen to the next 2, and I have since listened to them. I'll probably not listen to them again until we cover worst Dylan albums, as a
See, there's
bonus episode.
Some stuff on Shot, I think Saved is a dreadful album. There's some stuff on Shot of Love I enjoy.
I do actually agree. I like the song Shot of Love, actually.
I like Shot of Love. I really love Every Grain of Sand, even though I'm not not a God-fearing man. But I think it's a beautiful...
No, there is, I take that back, but there's enough really
there's enough
execrable
We were talking
stuff
on the way here about... Precious Angel being possibly my least favourite Dylan song. Yeah. Just even the tune makes me want to gouge my eyes out.
It's kind of...
Shut up.
It's the worst. It is actually the worst of Dylan. Like he gets all his bad stuff in a single song. Anyway, so his reputation was very, very low at this point. And it was 1983, and he didn't want anymore to be irrelevant. He didn't want anymore to... be able to walk down the street. He wanted to be a star again, and he needed a hit album. So do you know who he went to as the first possible producer?
No, I don't.
You'd never guess. It was Frank Zappa.
Really?
Apparently.
Now that would have been a fucking album.
That would have been an album. Yeah, but Zappa was...
Bobby Brown and Bobby Zimmerman go to town.
Exactly. Then he went to Elvis Costello, who wasn't free, and Zappa thought it was insane anyway. Yeah. And then he went to Mark Knopfler. And they booked an entire month at the Power Station in New York, which was unheard of for Dylan. He'd never, booked a month straight in a studio. He'd always done some eccentric thing or moved the studio or something. And he brought along all these songs, including Blind Willie McTell. What could possibly go wrong? And that's where he was. He was he really did want a hit. But he wrote songs like Jokerman, which, as you say, even, we've been looking at this for some weeks now, doing research on it, and I don't think either of us knows what it's about.
It's sort of a song I've always liked, but not known why. And actually looking into it, I sort of like it less now, having looked into it. It reminds me a little bit, and this might be a bit of a tenuous link, but I grew up loving Jack Kerouac, particularly his poetry, which often I think gets overlooked. But they are very much kind of just incredible snapshots and images that often don't link together. His was very much a stream of consciousness thing. And I feel there's a sense of that to this song with me.
Yeah.
Like the images are gorgeous.
Yeah.
But as a song, it doesn't particularly have an arc that makes sense to me. But we talk of he's just come from his fire and brimstone Christian invasion. I mean, Leviticus and Deuteronomy are two of the real fire and brimstone books of the Old Testament. There's, I think Leviticus is where he's stoning women for adultery, and lots of mention of goats, and that's all I remember of the Old Testament. It's just a lot of it, and he got 18 goats for this.
Yes, I mean it's sort of. The word that comes to my mind is, well, you said fire and brimstone. Now, apparently fire and brimstone, they always talk about the smell of fire and brimstone. It's supposed to be a terrible smell. And to me, this song kind of stinks in a way. And I'm not saying that it's a bad
Just
song.
say you hate it, Gary.
No, I don't hate it. No. But it sort of stinks of fire and brimstone. I mean, sticking on, he just mentions the Leviticus and Deuteronomy, and just the mention of that, kind of makes you think about goats being sacrificed,
strict
scripture. And to me, that's like I was raised on the Old Testament like Bob. I went to Hebrew school like Bob, and so those things I've never gone back to that. Like Bob was coming from. He went off to the New Testament. I'll try this testament. This is a better testament. And then in this one, he seems to be coming back to the Old Testament, which is. I remember years ago, I had lunch with a good friend of mine. His nephew. We were putting together a verbatim theater piece, and we wanted somebody who was really hardcore religious. It was about that. And so I had lunch with this guy, and he had came from a Jewish family, but had then become a cloistered monk.
Oh, wow.
And it was, they were eating like corn gruel in the morning, and then meditating all day, and God knows, possibly flagellating themselves, because he was one weird guy. But he'd come out of that, and he'd become a sort of like born-again, Old Testament, ultra-Orthodox Jew.
Yeah.
And he said he thought Christianity was too namby-pamby. He thought being a monk wasn't tough enough.
Yeah.
And I think there's a bit of that in this song.
Yes.
To me.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there was one point, because I was thinking, like, what is this song about? What is this song about? I thought it was about Jesus at one point. He's got the lines, a friend to the martyr, a friend to the woman of shame, Mary Magdalene, I assume, standing on the water, casting your bread. But then he goes, this is the line there, but you go, Sodom and Gomorrah, but what do you care? Ain't nobody there would want to marry your sister. What the fuck does that mean?
I was going to save this to the end.
Okay, go for it.
But I've got the answer to that.
Oh,
or at least,
please.
At least, if not the answer, a possibility.
A possible theory, okay.
Okay. So you're going to Sodom and Gomorrah, but what do you care? Ain't nobody there would want to marry your sister. I've never understood that. But then I thought, no, wait a second. There's an old, not very funny joke that's echoing around in the back of my mind. And the type of old, really not very funny joke that Dylan likes. And I kind of, through the magic of AI, looked it up. And this is the joke. Okay, there's a small town church. A few minutes before the services start, the townspeople are sitting in their pews and just chatting. Suddenly, Satan appears at the front of the church. Everyone starts screaming and running for the exits, trampling each other because it's Satan, evil incarnate, and they all clear the church. except for one very elderly man who sits calmly in his pew without moving. And so Satan comes over to him. God's ultimate enemy is standing right there in front of him. Satan looks down at the old man and says, I'm going to do my Satan voice here, says, "Don't you know who I am?"
Ooh. Very James Earl Jones.
Thank you. Slightly RP there.
Yeah.
Because the villain's always slightly RP. "Don't you know who I am?" The old man replies, "Yep, sure do." "I am Satan. Are you not terrified?" "Nope." Satan is stunned. "Don't you realize I can kill you with a word?" "Well, I don't doubt that for a minute." "I can cause you profound, horrifying physical agony for all eternity." "Yeah, that sounds about right." Satan is flummoxed. You're still not afraid of me?" "Nope," replies the old-timer. "But why? Why are you not afraid?" "Well, probably because for the last 50 years, I've been married to your sister." And that is the punchline of the Sodom and Gomorrah.
There we go.
And nobody there would want to marry your sister. At least that's my theory.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I was trying to figure out, I was getting really into it as in but Jesus, Sodom and Gomorrah was gone by the time Jesus was alive. What?
I don't know, but
it
anyway,
reminds me a little bit of the Eddie Izzard Death Star. I could kill you with a single glance. I'll get a tray.
There you go. See, Jokerman is funny.
There we
That's
are.
why he calls it Jokerman.
Yeah.
It's basically about a joke. Actually, seriously.
Yeah.
Maybe it's
Perhaps.
partially. I mean, Jokerman. But really, why?
I can't figure out what it's about.
There's another reference here that I did notice. There's a reference to the Rifleman. Well, the Rifleman, just so you know, was a TV show. It was a Western that was on television when I was a kid. And Dylan loves Westerns. So I have no, maybe, the Rifleman is there. The Preacher Man is also mentioned in the song. There's always Preacher Man in the Wild West. But overarching anything. I mean, I don't know. Should we go through the lyrics? Try to figure out what the hell...
Yeah, I mean, before we go through the lyrics,
okay.
I just want to say kind of musically how for their level of talent, they're so underused on this album, but it's Sly and Robbie. Which, I love Sly and Robbie.
Fabulous. And Mark Knopfler's a brilliant guitarist.
Yeah, and actually, my dad's not a Dylan fan. I've tried to get him into Dylan. He likes certain bits, but he loves Sly and Robbie. So I said, I'll play him this album. And his first comment, I was expecting him to say something profound about the album, and he just went, well, Sly and Robbie are very underused on that. And it's true. It's so basic for them, but it does bring something. It's, bringing a reggae-type rhythm section adds new things to a Dylan album. So it's an odd one in that it's 2/4 in the verse and then 4/4 in the chorus. But the main odd thing is that the phrasing is 6 bars rather than 4 bars, which is what it kind of gives this... It means that when the chorus does come in, it's quite sudden. You get the ding-a-ling, which is this sort of rolling train that they go. It's very unusual in a pop and rock song, not that unusual in reggae music.
But I'm just looking at the. I guess this is the last verse. Just the way the words flow. I mean, actually, it's beautiful poetry. It's a shadowy world. Skies are slippery gray. A woman just gave birth to a prince today and dressed him in scarlet. I mean, that's a hell of a line. A woman just gave birth to a prince today and dressed him in scarlet.
Well, as I say, 6/4. Because it's longer than it, so you have to kind of stretch it out. It gives something to it, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, and he is a master of phrasing. So, I mean, who else could sing this song? Actually, there are a few covers, believe it or not. He'll put the priest in his pocket, put the blade to the heat, take the motherless children off the street and place them at the feet of a harlot. So, there's a lot of words there. It's just difficult. But also what he's saying. What?
Because it seems so Christ-like. Often, but then he kind of
takes
there's
out
the from under
there's the fire, there's the brimstone aspect.
But then take the motherless children off the street and place them at the feet of a harlot. What does that mean?
I mean, it's kind of sickening, really. That's what, to me, there's a lot of Dylan stuff that is, to me, I find kind of, for lack of a better word, it's just too awful. I think that's why he's written it. By the way, I discovered the other day when I was listening to just some song, I can't remember, I've got this theory that I'll probably bring up again and again. Dylan is kind of obsessed with vomit.
You said yes. I can't remember.
It was
a
yet
bonus
another.
episode we were doing.
Yeah, it was another one. Like, it was yet another one where he was talking about. He doesn't use the word vomit, but he talks about being sick, and he talks about sort of other slang terms for vomit. Anyway, we'll come back to that one. But it is kind of puke making, some of his.
Well, there's also
imagery.
The apocalyptic sort of, revelation type stuff. Well, the rifleman stalking the sick and the lame, preacher man seats the same, who'll get there first is uncertain. Nightsticks and water cannons, tear gas, padlocks, Molotov cocktails and rocks behind every curtain. False-hearted judges dying in the webs that they spin. Only a matter of time till night comes stepping in. It's very end of the worldsy.
It really is. Here's the original lyrics to the final verse, which I've just got in front of me here. It's a shadowy world. Skies are slippery gray. A woman just gave birth to a prince today, and she's dressed in scarlet. He'll turn priests into pimps and make old men bark. Take a woman who could have been Joan of Arc and turn her into a harlot.
Oh, wow.
Which at least I like it better because I understand that. Like, a woman who could have been Joan of Arc, he'll turn her into a harlot, this Jokerman. Also, I like the idea of turning priests into pimps and making old men bark. It's a little more, to coin a phrase, accessible than what he ended up with.
Yeah.
Maybe too accessible. Like, everybody will understand that.
It's one thing, because I've been listening for the first time in years to the Cutting Edge bootleg series, where you've got all the stuff from 65 and 66 and all the takes. And you think of Dylan as, he is one of the best songwriters, if not the greatest songwriter of all time. You would think a lot of his method was more considered than perhaps it is. I mean, Leonard Cohen apparently spent 5 years on some of his songs and was so meticulous about every line.
Yeah.
Whereas Bob in 65 and 66, you hear from take to take different changes, and he's making up names for the songs and shit like that, having a joke about it.
He believes in, I think he believes in spontaneity, clearly, but he also believes in obfuscation. Is that a word?
Obfuscation.
I believe it is a word.
It is.
And I think he would much prefer something to be obscure than clear.
Yeah.
And so I think some of this early stuff, like here's some more of the early stuff. You're a man of the mountains. You can walk in the clouds. Manipulator of crowds. You're a dream twister. You're going to Sodom and Gomorrah, but what do you care? Ain't nobody there would want to marry your sister. Then it goes on to say, scratching the world with a fine-toothed comb. You're a king among nations. You're a stranger at home. Now, we can understand that.
Yeah.
Right? Which is probably why he didn't use it.
Yeah.
But I do love that. You're a king among nations. You're a stranger at home. I like scratching the world with a fine-toothed comb as well. I mean, I kind of feel like that's what Bob Dylan does. It's like Prometheus. It's like scratching the world with a fine-toothed comb. Just this task that he's been given.
Yeah, I can't remember what art critic it was, but I read something once that stayed with me. It was essentially, I won't get the exact quotation right, but he said essentially great pieces of art should be about nothing. They should make no sense in order that the viewer puts their own meaning onto it. And I feel like since starting to go through Dylan's songs for this podcast, I'm starting to realise how little I actually make, or that nothing's clear.
Yeah.
Almost ever with Dylan.
No, I think that's true. With the exception of, the Jesus albums and the Love albums.
Yeah.
And they were kind of like blips in the giant oeuvre of Bob Dylan. I agree with you. I mean, maybe he thinks that it's clearer than it is in some cases here because he's so steeped in Old Testament biblical imagery and New Testament imagery. But to me, that was, delving more deeply into the song, that's what put me off more and more. All the stuff about Woman of Shame and Harlot, and even Angels and Princes. Like I'm just not an Angels and Princes kind of guy. That's not how I roll. Whereas he does. But you know what? That made me think. I had that thought, and I wrote it down. Yeah, Angels and Princes, don't like it. Then I thought, but what about John Wesley Harding? Or what about Three Angels, the song on New Morning? And I thought, it's because those are better albums.
Yes.
I mean, John Wesley Harding is better. It's subtler, it's deeper, it's quieter, and it's shorter. I mean, I think actually I won't say most of his songs would be better, because I love some of his super long songs. But songs that don't go, like Jokerman, it doesn't really kind of, as you say,
it doesn't
go anywhere. It just circles its own tail.
Yes.
Are we going to talk about the live version, the David Letterman?
Oh,
or
goodness.
Can I mention something? I watched it again, and it's fabulous.
Well, he's got his punk rock young band behind him.
Yes.
Where the hell they've come from?
Well, actually,
they've just stepped out of the movie Grease. Don't they?
Yes, exactly. No, I found an interview with one of the guys on Flagging Down the Double E's, and so I'll credit that.
Shout out to them. I love Flagging Down the Double E's.
And I didn't get the guy. I didn't write down the guy's name, but anyway, the band was kind of called the Plugz. They weren't really the Plugz. Yeah. They were like two guys who had sometimes been in a band called the Plugz. Anyway, Dylan somehow, or his people, found them in 1984, and or I guess it was after. No, it was just about the time it came out. Anyway, he invited them to his place in Malibu. They were based in L.A., and they jammed every 2 or 3 weeks, and mostly old blues stuff. And he'd say, "You guys know," and they were, they knew as new wave punk rockers, they were very steeped. Despite the fact they were new wave punk rockers, they were very steeped in the blues. So they would, and they would go over to Bob's house, every few weeks and do their thing. Then the call came. They weren't doing it for any reason. They weren't doing it for an album or anything, but they were happy. And Bob called them up and said, "Do you want to go on the Letterman show?" And they said, "Yes, please." And so they show up on to do the Letterman show. And they did there's a very grainy, you can see the rehearsal on YouTube. I found the rehearsal. And Bob saw the playback of the rehearsal. And of course, it was mostly close-ups of him. And he said, "No close-ups of me. It's a band gig." And so that's why it's this wide 3-shot, only the wide 3-shot. And Dylan is on fire. He's
it's a
brilliant.
Great performance.
And the thing that struck me, amongst the various odd things about it, is what he was wearing, because he was wearing this skinny tie and a tight jacket.
Sort of leather jacket and skinny jeans type thing.
And apparently, that's what the drummer brought as his gig outfit. And Bob said, "I really dig that. Can I wear it?" And so the drummer was wearing his street clothes.
Brilliant.
And Bob, and that's why he had that long tie, which was slightly ill-advised because he kept dropping onto his guitar and, getting in the way when he was trying to play chords and stuff. And then in the middle of it all, he plays a little bit of a harmonica solo, and then it's the wrong harmonica, and then he just leaves.
Yeah, he does. I'd forgotten about that.
He just walks off, and they're just vamping.
It's brilliant. And he comes back with...
and this is more or less live TV. I mean, it's taped for live.
Yeah.
And then he comes back at the end and toodles a couple of notes.
Yeah.
And that's the end of it. And then apparently, at the end of it all, he said, "See you on Monday." And he never called them again.
Never called them. Oh,
that's so showbiz. That's so wonderful.
Yeah.
It's like, we're Dylan's band.
I mean, the thing is, I actually do really like the album, and I think it would be up there with some of Dylan's best albums, Infidels, if he'd taken out a few songs and put in Foot of Pride and Blind Willie McTell, essentially.
Yeah.
And instead you've got Neighborhood Bully, which I fucking hate. I know he was making a political point. I just don't think it's a very good song, or good metaphors particularly. Hi, Bobcats. If you enjoy Bob Dylan approximately and would like access to longer bonus episodes,
early access to all episodes,
plus a whole range of exclusive membership benefits,
consider becoming a Bobsessive over at our Patreon page.
You'll get all that for just £5 a month.
Oh, and if you're going to sign up, please do so via a web browser rather than the Patreon app.
or Apple take 30% of our Patreon fee.
Because money doesn't talk, it swears. Down every street there's a window, and every window made of glass. We'll keep on lovin', pretty baby, for as long as love will last. Beyond here lies nothing but the mountains of the past. Yes, exactly. Big guitar riff.
Oh, as a blues man, I love the music on this.
Yeah.
I love it.
No, well, it was stolen from the best. It was pretty much stolen from Black Magic Woman by Fleetwood Mac, and played by Mike Campbell of the Heartbreakers. And it's really a great blues riff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a great blues riff and does something that Dylan rarely does, which, one, it has an opening solo and then it has a solo in the middle of the song. And it's one thing that I'm trying, as I've said earlier in the episode, I try and get my dad into Dylan. He's like, this needs a guitar solo. I'm like playing him Love and Theft. He's like, how many verses are there? It needs a solo. Because he has had some phenomenal guitarists play with it. Like Larry Campbell, I think, is great. G. Smith was fantastic. All could have done shredded stuff, but it's not something he does generally.
No, I don't know. He must have turned his back or something, and Mike Campbell just sort of started riffing. Keep that in.
Keep it in.
I do love. We can talk about. We've not really talked about the blues or Fleetwood Mac. Maybe a little later. I'll go on just to talk about as we've started. Beyond here lies nothing. Apparently that's a quote from the Roman poet Ovid.
Ovid, yes, yes. So there's a bit of tentative of which collection it's from and translations and blah, blah, blah. But it's from a collection called Tristia. And the actual quote is, although other men have been exiled by you for graver offences, none was packed further off. Beyond here lies nothing but chillness, hostility, frozen waves of an ice-hard sea. It was Ovid had been exiled by the emperor at the time. And this was sort of his lament.
That's great. That's almost like a Dylan lyric.
Yeah. Well, interestingly, like one of the books I've read in the last few years that I really would recommend as a Dylan fan is Why Dylan Matters.
Yes,
which essentially is an academic book, but brilliant because it talks about Dylan's obsession with the Roman poets specifically, and there's a lot around Love and Theft and his later work, and Tempest especially, loads of references in there. But yeah, so there were a few possible translations, but that's the main one I got.
Well, that's great. That's more than I got. But I did get that Beyond Here Lies Nothing But the Moon and Stars, but the Mountains of the Past. And I thought that's so wonderfully Dylan, because it can be taken at least two ways. Like beyond here, there is nothing but everything. The moon and stars are the universe.
Yeah.
So beyond here, there's really everything. And the mountains of the past are also memory. So beyond here lies nothing. So it's nothing but everything.
Yeah.
If you can take it in that way. You can also say there's nothing. There is absolutely, beyond here lies nothing.
Well, I sort of questioned this, and there are many ways you could take it, but it seems like most of every verse is kind of beautiful and romantic love that's almost too perfect, and corny is not the right word, but too perfect for Dylan, which is why every verse ends with the turning it up on its head. But maybe that's just my glass half empty notion, but is he saying beyond our love there is nothing? It could be even more romantic. It could be without our love there's fuck all, because without your love there's nothing. It could be that. I don't know.
It could be. I mean, that's the thing, is it's Dylan, right? It does remind me a bit of Time Passes Slowly, which we covered in episode 1, because you're the only love I've ever known. There is that line in Beyond Here Lies Nothing, but his ship is in the harbor and the sails are spread. He's got to leave. So there's both. I'm not going to leave. Why would I leave? Beyond here lies nothing.
Yeah.
But my ship is in the harbor and the sails are spread. In other words, I'm out of here. And also the whole thing about, is the relationship, is it vital? Is it really, energizing and satisfying, or is it dead, like nothing done and nothing said? Reminds me of, again, Time Passes Slowly. Ain't no reason to go up, ain't no reason to go down, ain't no reason to go anywhere. Which is a bit depressing. And nothing done and nothing said. I don't even quite know what that means, but it sounds like beyond here lies nothing, but here also lies nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this slightly ties back into... I've written some stuff down that we talked about in the Dylan and Women bonus episode that if you're a patron, you can hear. And it's something that I didn't say during this, but I'm always very suspicious generally of love as, idealized love within our society and what people say. Like often this always comes to my mind when an old person dies and then their partner dies a week later and it said, oh, they died of a broken heart. That's seen as this beautiful, oh my God, that's true love in our society. Now, I think it's my sort of 10 years of Buddhism and meditating to the nth degree, perhaps. But there's something about me that it's a connection to nothing external can bring you salvation. So therefore, I feel really uncomfortable with that notion of romantic love, that someone outside you is everything and your existence for being. So I guess for me personally, I have to read this song as Dylan still with a wink and kind of turning the verse on its head at the end of each verse. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I hear you. And I think that's very, very Dylan-esque because I don't think... Although I find the album itself, it's got a very kind of comforting sound.
It's an odd album, isn't it, Together Through Life?
It is an odd album. Like, it came out of nowhere. It got virtually no publicity before it was released. The previous album was Modern Times, which is an album that you could...
But which... Because there's two in 2009. Which was... I guess the Christmas album was last.
Oh, God. I don't even count the Christmas album. I mean,
Who's got a suit that's red and red?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's your name. That's right.
God knows I love crappy Dylan songs more than most men, but...
I really like Must Be Santa.
No, Must Be Santa, okay.
And the video.
Must Be Santa.
What's going on with the video?
Must Be Santa is great, I have to say. But and the video, just completely...
What the fuck is he smoking?
What drug were they on?
Yeah.
That was like a drug that has never been invented.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's just... He looks so out of place.
But the background on Together Through Life was, I think he was asked to do a couple of songs for a movie that was barely released. And then he got people together in the studio and he worked with Robert Hunter and they turned out an album. And they called in David Hidalgo of Los Lobos and they recorded it at Jackson Brown's studio and Dylan produced it as Jack Frost. But it's an album that people don't usually people sometimes even forget he made this album. It's very odd because I think it's all seems quite comforting and like the accordion on it is quite warm. And again,
I was thinking if you ever go to Houston, typifies that. It's sort of very odd for Dylan.
It's very blues based, and we both of us love blues, so I put it on, and don't listen to the lyrics very carefully, but I'm very fond of it. But when you do dig deep, like we have to do for the podcast, then you do find a bit of gold under that kind of lovely, comfy sofa that is the album. And the one thing that jumped out at me in particular, I've never really caught the lyrics on. I always thought it was down every street there's a window, and it sounded to me like a heavy window made of glass. Like I
always thought an every window made of
glass.
Yes,
it is. Well, and I looked up the Dylan website, which is not always right.
No,
it says
they throw you curveballs,
down every street there's a window, and every window made of glass, which is an odd phrase. And every window made of glass. Also, it's a thing that Dylan loves to do. Like almost every window is made of glass in real life. Like if there's a window, is it made of glass? Yes, because windows are made of glass.
Are glass.
So he's making the point very carefully that every window is made of glass, which is sort of like saying basement down the stairs. You know, he loves doing stuff like that.
Yeah, he does, doesn't he?
Basement has to be down the stairs. And he knows that. And the final end, not the other end, the final end. In the final end, we won the war. So this is another, also there's 2 mentions of windows here. And another thing I'd like to keep track of, like literally I'd make notches in the table, is the number of mentions of window in Bob Dylan songs. Yeah. Windows and doors. Just like, I was listening the other day when I came up with this theory, and I listened to the usual. I was listening to, you know, a couple of Bob Dylan albums, and pretty much every 7 or 8 songs, there's a mention of a window or a door.
Yeah, standing in the doorway,
standing in the doorway,
sign on the window.
And even I was listening to Bob Dylan's 115th Dream the other day, and I thought, well, certainly there's not going to be any, you know, he's sailing and he's going in. No, he jumps through the door, jumps into the door of the taxi cab, and then he's out the other door of the taxi cab. Mm. So there's 2 doors in that, at least in that song. And Motorcycle Nightmare, you know, he's knocking on the door. So anyway, doors and windows. Let's keep a close eye on.
Okay, that's
on that.
Yeah, I like that. Shall we talk about the video?
Let's talk about the video. Who, by the way, was directed, just in case you didn't know, by the guy who did Must Be Santa. It was the
same dude. He's an interesting man, clearly.
Oh, Christ. So that video, you go first.
Yeah. So it sort of, to me, maybe bolsters my wanting to believe that the song is not what it seems. It's not quite as mushy romantic love as perhaps it could be read as. It comes out of fucking left field, doesn't it, that video?
Well, I've written down a précis of the video, just in case people haven't seen it.
Yeah.
Please watch it on YouTube after this,
because
it does bear watching. So a man enters a rundown room in a Fleabag hotel. Tell me if you disagree with any of this. With a bag of groceries. He pours himself a drink.
Is it a hotel or is it? I think it's his apartment.
Well, yes, it might be. You know, sometimes there's things like called residential hotels.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I think that's what it is. You know, it's a Fleabag place. Anyway, he pours himself a drink, puts the groceries down, but suddenly he's suspicious. He takes out a knife and walks to a door, opens the door, and we can see through the door that, just briefly, a bed, there's ropes and what seems like blood.
And handcuffs,
And handcuffs on the bed. So you think, that doesn't look like sex play that's gone wrong.
It looks
that
like
looks like
someone's
torture.
being held under duress.
Yeah, exactly. So he enters the bedroom, and a gorgeous blonde woman smashes a bottle over his head. She's covered with bruises, we can see. There's a violent fight, lots of punching and smashing. And
she nearly gets out, though. That's the first thing. Before there's a violent fight.
Right.
Because you're like, get out, get out. That's how I feel. There's a real... Watching it, you get, oh my God, get out.
Yeah.
But you realise she gets to the door, and because he's been keeping her locked up, there's so many locks on the door and stuff, so she can't.
Yeah, that's the door to the apartment.
The front door. Yeah. So she can't get out.
Exactly. More door references.
Yeah. So she goes to try and get a weapon.
Yeah.
And before she can, he's on her essentially.
But I know she ends up. Oh, she somehow gets the knife, right? Because she stabs him.
Yes, in the end. She also hits him with a frying pan at one point.
Yes. It's a very violent.
But he goes for her.
Oh, he punches her in the face.
Her,
and she punches him back. But it's really, really violent. Like, it's as violent as anything you'll see on The Sopranos.
It's Tarantino-esque, isn't it?
It's Tarantino-esque.
We just need some more gloopy blood, and it would be Tarantino.
Exactly. And it's in black and white, so you can't see the blood. But or you can see that it's black. So she stabs him. He doesn't like run into her knife or anything. No. She fucking stabs him in the guts. And then she runs down. It's down the stairs, right? It's up a flight of stairs.
Yeah.
Runs down to the, beautiful 1968 Ford Fairlane, whatever it is. A rundown, beat up, but, gorgeous car, which luckily has the keys in the ignition, as they always happens in videos and movies. And she drives off, and he staggers out of their room through the doorway, down the stairs, and I think collapses to his knees on the sort of forecourt where the car's been parked. And she's making her way away, but she sees him in the rearview mirror. She stops, and then she slams into reverse and runs him over.
Yeah.
And then he's still not dead. And then she gets out and gives him a really tender, seemingly romantic kiss.
Yeah.
As he seems to be dying.
It's mad.
And that's the Beyond Here Lies Nothing video. The song is playing all the way through. And it's timed perfectly to...
And you can barely... You're not really paying attention to the song at all because the action is so vivid and so fast and high-paced.
Yeah, and it has nothing to do with, while he's singing And Every Window's Made of Glass, is where around the time we see the blood and the handcuffs on the bed or something like that. It has nothing to do with it. So what I think it's saying is that love is a violent struggle. And but it's got also something to do with devious women and controlling men. And always remove your car keys from the ignition. It's a little.
That's the main.
That's the main. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
It's a little household tip. But to me, it's again I get more and more the deeper we go into Dylan for this podcast, the more I get this feeling, which there should be a German name for it. It's
Dylan Freude.
Dylan Freude, exactly. And there's a feeling of creepiness, of like blood chilling, almost goose pimple inducing creepiness. Creepy is a kind of not a good enough word, but there's something about, like, again, there's sort of a smell to that Fleabag apartment, smell of like dried blood and whiskey and stale cigarette smoke that the video is kind of permeated with. And I'm not, like, I do find the video, I find it quite shocking, like a man and a woman punching each other in the face in a music video, and they fly across the room and sort of it's very
brilliantly choreographed.
Yeah.
In terms,
I was thinking that because I didn't think it was particularly well acted in a way. Like I didn't think that they were actors. I thought they were probably stunt people.
Yeah.
Because the stunts were beautiful, but it gave me that feeling of Dylan Freude that I think he's trying to make, which is that. Love it's certainly not romantic. At least this is not a romantic video, and I think he's saying very clearly it's not a romantic song. I mean, I read an interview with the director, and he said that he had carte blanche from the Dylan people, the office, to do whatever he liked. Like Dylan had seen something else he'd
Well, this is
directed.
the question I was going to ask. How much creative input did Dylan have?
Apparently,
to this,
he had
none?
no creative input, but they had veto. Like, if they didn't like it, like, they gave him a budget.
Of course, yeah.
And if he didn't like it, but Dylan said,
go for
cool, this will go out as the video. And not only that, he ended up doing the Duquesne Whistle video.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's got, I don't know, just the way he frames stuff and the aesthetic of his shots. It seems like there's a similarity. With
We will maybe do the Duquesne Whistle video when we do Duquesne Whistle.
Dark
or should we?
humor, isn't it? It's
really...
really
humor. I mean, he did make me laugh, on the Teen Time Radio Hour with some of his, terrible jokes. Did really make me laugh. But otherwise, like the Duquesne Whistle video, basically almost centers around the big torture scene, and. I just like, what? I love you, Bob, but I'm not going to the movies with you.
With the do behind it.
What's that? Oh, you mean to the torture scene?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, like they break this guy's kneecaps with a baseball bat in this music video.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, it's all to do with love.
Yeah.
Like it's
Well, it goes back slightly to what we were talking about in the bonus episode, Dylan and Women, of it's clearly similar. Maybe it's one similarity I have with Bob, finding romantic relationships in the formula that society tells us, the normal version of it, very difficult. And I don't think Bob can. I don't think it's got a place in his life, really.
No, absolutely.
He's not got space for it.
No,
particularly.
No. There's one thing I want to mention because it's the only place that I can think to mention it, which is, excuse me. Did you notice the first shot of A Complete Unknown, which we saw together, is young Bob, Timothy Chalamet, looking out the back of this 1950s station wagon, and that is the cover of Together Through Life. It's a recreation of the Together Through Life cover.
I did not clock
and
that.
This is not being me being fanciful, which I often am. Clock it, like freeze frame it.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't freeze framed it because I've only seen it in the cinema, but I know that cover really well.
Yeah.
I know that photograph really well, which is by this guy named Bruce Davidson.
Easter egg there.
Yeah. No, if the next time, because there's no doubt I'm going to see the film again.
Yeah, I'll see it. I've seen it 3 times.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. So, it's taken from not so much the Together Through Life cover, but from that, what turns out it was quite a famous photograph. I'd never seen it before.
No.
And it was these guys, I think they were, as another word Bob is very fond of, so we can use it, is gypsy. And I think it was a gypsy couple, young, beautiful, gazing out the back of this station wagon window.
Amazing. I've got just 2 before because I know we're running out of time, but there's just a couple of points I want to make. For me, even if it is this romantic love thing, this really idealized romantic love, it's a song for me about exile from the world. They're kind of leaving and going on their own path. And I've found, and I've read a lot about, so Ovid, which the song is taken a quote from, was in exile when he wrote that poem. But I think Dylan's got an obsession with exile, particularly when it comes to romantic love. And there's a lot of that in folk songs anyway. I think of like the Lakes of Pontchartrain, and there's always songs about men coming upon women.
Oh yeah,
by
we covered that in the self-portrait episode.
In the self-portrait, just so many songs about men in the wilderness coming upon a woman by a river who takes him in.
Exactly.
And I was just thinking, shelter from the storm. I came in from the wilderness, a creature void of form. Come in, she said, I'll give you shelter from the storm. He's always in exile, even when he's on his own, even when he's falling in love. There's, Drifters Escape, which is a different thing, but there's always, he loves songs about drifters and people on a different path than the rest of the world, which is, I think, what Bob is. He's toured for his entire life, pretty much. And I think a lot of great artists by nature are on the periphery of society in a way. They have to be able to comment on it in many ways. So yeah, I just wanted to make that point. I just realised how many songs of his are about
No, it is
exile.
a good point. And I was thinking when you said, come in, she said, I'll give you shelter from the storm. That's the kind of romantic love that you were talking about, that you were saying that you don't quite believe in. And that was Bob believing in that. Come in, she said, I'll give you shelter from the storm.
Yeah.
But we all know that didn't...
That didn't work out in the end. Yeah. And it's, interestingly, an album written about the end of that. So he's kind of writing about something that we know from the rest of the album has failed.
I believe we'll be covering that album in one of our next episodes.
I believe we shall be. One final point, and it's just a music point. It's because I found out this is a real rarity. It's a 12-bar blues, which I had no idea. Usually it's very obvious when stuff's a 12-bar blues. I had to listen really carefully and went, oh, fuck, that's a 12-bar. But it's a 12-bar in a minor key, which almost never happens. So, yeah, the melody is so strong with the... that you kind of don't recognise the 12 bar underneath it, but it's always there.
Right.
So, but it is, such a bluesy song that it doesn't surprise me. But yeah, 12 bar blues rarely in a minor key. So
actually, there's a very good. We're never going to finish this episode, really. There's a very good Spotify playlist that I discovered, which is just called Bob Dylan's Blues, and it goes on for like 6 hours, and it's all the Bob Dylan, basically 12-bar blues songs.
Awful lot of them.
Yeah,
He's a blues man.
He's a blues man, which reminds me of this thing that I told you just before we came in, but I'll mention it again, which is when it's a thing I found on YouTube. It's just like a 30-second excerpt where from some interview that I'd never heard before. Who knows? Maybe it's AI generated, but I don't think so. It sounded like real Bob Dylan, and real Bob Dylan sort of like out of his head in *65 on, whatever drugs he was on then, and he sounded pretty wrecked. But somebody said, what do you make of the difference between your rock and roll and the Beatles rock and roll? And he said, well, the Beatles don't play rock and roll. And actually, that is him as a 75-year-old. But he said the Beatles don't play rock and roll because rock and roll is always based on the 12-bar blues, and Beatles don't do that. And he's wrong about that because they did on, a lot of their songs, and they did a lot of Chuck Berry covers and things like that. So they did do rock and roll. But he basically said the Beatles don't do rock and roll. They are not blues-based musicians. He said, I respect what they do, but they don't do rock and roll. It's an interesting concept, or it's an interesting point of
I get
view.
what he's talking about in terms of it's not as clearly blues influenced as I was saying this to you as the Rolling Stones, early stuff particularly, and most of the Rolling Stones. But yeah, they are definitely rock and roll. And he's right though. Any rock and roll is inspired from a 12-bar blues. That's how it started. But yeah.
He's right about most things, and then he's wrong about most things as
but
well.
Also, I fucking hate that. Like, I've seen so many interviews with with Mick Jagger and Zeppelin, who I love, being asked about what are you comparing them to the Beatles, and it's just like, why were they obsessed with what are you? Oh, you're a big band, but you're not as big as the Beatles. So what are you in relation to the Beatles? Like,
yeah,
totally
it's a stupid fucking question. It is a
totally
stupid fucking question,
and it's pitting artists against each other. It's like, can you not celebrate that there's a few really great bands around right now? Rather than going, what are we better than the Beatles? It's like Led Zeppelin and the Beatles are nothing to do with each other.
Yep.
Anyway. Au revoir.
That was Bob Dylan Approximately with Kerry Shale
and Daniel Crespin. Produced by Robin Guise.
And recorded at Lipsync Post, Soho, London.
For longer bonus episodes, join our Patreon feed.
And if you have a Bobsessive friend, please spread the word.
It ain't quite the end.
We'll just bid farewell till we meet again.